I was asked to clean out my father's house after he had passed away. He was a huge gaming nerd. He even camped out for the release of the NES when he was about my age, 19. He had them all: Atari 2600, Atari Flashback, Magnavox, Odyssey 2000 to 5000, NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Wii, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, DS, DS Lite, DSi, 3DS, Xbox, Xbox 360, PlayStation 1 to 3, PSP, and even the PS Vita. He might have even had the Wii U, if he was alive long enough for the release. I was in my father's house, alone, cleaning out the basement. I grabbed one of the last cardboard boxes down there, and I noticed how light it was. Wondering why it was so light, I peeked inside to find that one old NES game cartridge was in there. It did not have a game label on it. It only had MaRIo with the R and I capitalized, crudely written by my father's permanent marker. I became curious. Why was this game all by itself in a box? Why was the label torn off? Why was it written on? And why was MaRIo spelled so crudely? Since my father handed me down all of his games and consoles, which included his NES, I decided to take it home and figure it out for myself. I got home and set up the NES. I immediately popped the game in and started it up. Things already seemed a little off. The game had no startup screen. It simply just placed me at the start of the level of what appeared to be the classic games that we all know and love, Super Mario Bros. Well, the game is old, I thought to myself. Maybe it's just a little glitchy, and that is why it skipped the startup screen. Dad did buy it at its midnight release after all, so I continued. As I expected, the game was rather glitchy. Sometimes when grabbing a fire flower, it would make Mario small, and stars only worked 75% of the time. As well, Toad never said the message he had for you at the end of every castle. You know, thank you Mario, but our princess is in another castle. He never said anything. That was until World 7's castle. Only one step closer to becoming one of us. This message made me chuckle a little. I assumed my father had hacked the game for laughs, and that's why it was so glitchy before. Things got weird after that. In World 8 Level 1, the sky was a dark red, and the music was a little slower than usual. The whole level was nothing but 5 minutes of walking. No enemies or obstacles, just the ground. Reaching the end of the level, I grabbed the flag. The ending fanfare did not play, and the fireworks sounded more like gunshots than 8-bit explosions. Okay, that was strange, I thought to myself. What was the point in that? Oh well, on to the next level. World 8 Level 2 was even stranger. The sky was an even darker red, and the music played even slower. This time, there were enemies. I was approached by a Koopa Troopa, and for points, I jumped on him. The delightful little noise that plays when you jump on an enemy did not play this time. Instead, there was a squish, accompanied with the crackling of bones and a slight groan. This was weird and sadistic. It did not seem like something my father would do. In fact, he in no way condoned anything scary in my house as I was growing up. He never allowed my older sister or myself to play any scary games or watch any scary movies. We did it at our friends' houses, of course, but that's besides the point. I moved on and ran into a Goomba. To make sure the earlier sound was not a glitch, I jumped on it. The same sound played. I was becoming unsettled, to say the least. When I reached the end of the level, the same thing happened as it had at the end of the previous level. I noticed something even more weird. The spot on the screen that showed what level you are on did not display World 8 Level 3. Instead it showed World, followed by the symbol on the flag at the end of every level that looked like a skull. I know it's not actually a skull, but it does look like one. The third level of the world's skull was even stranger. The sky was a dark red, much darker than before, and the music did not even play. The enemies that I came to were already dead. Their bodies appeared twisted and mangled, like someone had beaten them to death. I reached the end. There was no flag or anything like that. Just a castle. It had "Welcome, MaRIo," with the R and I capitalized, painted on the front of it, which I assumed to be blood. Reluctantly, I entered. The black screen that shows your status between levels showed that I had 0 lives, and that I was in World D, Level ED. I was pale and trembling with fear. Just what was this game? The castle was like the first level of the world's skull. There was no obstacles, enemies, or slow music. I walked straight for what seemed like at least 15 minutes. My time reached 0, but the level kept going. It felt like MaRIo was not alone. Like someone was watching his every move. My only questions were, what was MaRIo's mission in this sadistic, twisted game? What did he want to accomplish, and why? I had to finish the game to know. Finally, I came to the end of the level. There he stood, Bowser. His eyes were missing, and his belly appeared fleshless. I prepared to fight him, but he quickly grabbed MaRIo. He began to laugh, evilly, realistically, sounds that cannot be made on an 8-bit console. It became clear to me, this was not a hack. Bowser bit MaRIo's head off. MaRIo's body shivered and struggled as Bowser dragged him behind the battle scene. You know, where Princess Peach was supposed to be. I was expecting to just see Princess Peach, but who am I kidding? I was not expecting anything that would save me from this nightmare. I saw Toad, Luigi, and Peach. However, both Luigi and Peach had toad heads on their bodies instead of their own. Bowser grabbed the toad's head and stuck it on MaRIo. He placed them next to the others. Bowser then proceeded to rip his own head off and began to pull out his intestines. A text appeared. Press B for a harder quest, and even you can become one of us. I threw my controller at the screen so hard that the screen actually broke. I ejected the cartridge and threw it at the wall. It fell into pieces. And I noticed that there was a note inside. I picked it up and read it. Dear son, you're next. Signed, Dad. I threw both the game and the letter in the fire that I started in my fireplace. I will never be able to get that satanic picture of my beloved characters like that out of my head. To this day, I cannot play Super Mario Bros. And in the other morning, I woke up to see the words MaRIo with the R and I capitalized carved into my arm. To take my mind off these things, I began looking through all of the other NES games. On top of the stack was Super Mario Bros. 2. However, the label was different. It spelled Super Mario Bros. 2 with the R and I capitalized. The picture of Mario, delightfully carrying the turnip, was instead a picture of Mario with an angry toad head, carrying Birdo's decapitated head instead of a turnip. After that, I just decided to never play any Mario game ever again. Whatever was on this game could only be worse. Thank you for reading. I wanted somebody to know about this before something happened to me. Sadly, about a week ago, my younger brother took his own life. Our father had died about a month before, and I believed that my brother was depressed without him. They were quite attached to one another, after all. The day before he killed himself, he came to my house and gave me our father's handed-down games and consoles. We were all such gaming nerds. I loved the 3 original Super Mario Bros. Games. Unfortunately, I was unable to find the first one, the giant stack of NES cartridges. However, I did come across Super Mario Bros. 2. I could tell my funny man father had printed off a label he must have made somewhere, because there were a few things different about it. For one, the title was spelled as Super Mario Bros. 2 with the R and I capitalized. And the picture of Mario on the cover, Mario had a toad's head and was carrying Birdo's head by the bow instead of a turnip. Yeah, my father had a rather dark sense of humor. I popped the game into the NES. For nostalgia, I decided to let the game tell me the story about Mario's dream. Only, it read something else. After Mario suffered a terrible fate, he decided to get revenge. He has become insane with rage and is going to take the life of every mortal who crosses his path. That was rather disturbing. I had guessed my brother had hacked it somehow. He knew how to. He was a huge computer nerd. I went on. The game did not give me the choice of my character. It simply threw me into the game as Mario, who, just like on the cover of the cartridge, had a toad's head instead of his own. There was no music, and I didn't jump from the sky. I was at the beginning of World 1, Level 1. Only, things were a little different. The background sky was black, and all the enemies were replaced with angry-looking toads. This was weird. Each toad angrily charged at Mario. I didn't even have to do anything, so when the toads touched Mario, they turned to skeletons and crumbled to the ground. I was uneasy by this. My favorite game was this unsettling game. I guess my brother has been very bored. I decided to see how the rest of the game was going to turn out. I reached the end of the level where you fight Birdo. She looked as if someone had gone to her before me. She was bruised and bloodied. It had some flesh and bones showing. I was horrified, to say the least. A text box popped up. Please. Mario stepped a little closer on his own. No, I don't. I'm not. He made another step. Why am I here? Another small step. I'm not who you think I... Mario pounced her. He began to ruthlessly beat her while she screamed. Realistically, sounds that can't be made on an 8-bit console. Blood spewed and showered with each hit Mario made. The last time he hit her, which he charged up for, her head rolled off. Mario drew off his toad head and replaced it with Birdo's. Another text box appeared. But you were one of us. You've angered us. You will rue this, Mario. The sky turned red. I heard what sounded like distant crying of a woman in the background, accompanied by what sounded like multiple evil laughs, played backwards all at once. A demonic deep voice was heard behind it all. Chills were just at my spine. They were everywhere. The whole room got colder, it seemed. I had goosebumps all over. The sounds were growing louder before suddenly stopping. Mario's Birdo head flew off. He still lived, headless. He turned to the screen and began to softly sob. I wanted to turn off the NES so badly, but something compelled me to leave it on. His cry grew louder. As he cried, an army of toads began to march in from the left of the screen. Noises from earlier resumed. This time, they were louder, and the woman was screaming instead of crying. I was sure my TV speakers were about to burst. Only, it sounded almost like the sounds weren't coming from the speakers. It's like they were coming from all around me. The laughter and deep voice stopped. However, the woman's screams began to strobe. It was almost like she was being violently tortured. It strode more and more and went on for a good minute and a half before suddenly stopping. The deep voice came back. I listened slowly to hear what it was saying. The Empire will rise. The Empire will rise? The picture blacked out. It was replaced with an artist-like picture of a headless Mario. His clothes were bloody, and some parts were torn off. The picture stayed on the screen for about 30 seconds, before the screen began to blink white repeatedly. The woman's scream came back along with the laughter. The laughter was mixed with people chanting, "The Empire, the Empire." I fainted from fear. I then had a very strange dream. I was laying on the ground, in a puddle of my own blood. I saw Mario coming. He was walking towards me with an angry-looking toad head, like before. I kept trying to tell him that I wasn't his enemy, but I was too weak to talk. I told him he wasn't who he thought I was. Then I realized I was Birdo. He jumped on me, just like in the game. I'll go before he started to attack. The words Mario, the R and I capitalized, was carved in my arm. I ejected the game from the NES, grabbed it, and threw it in the street. I ran over with my car multiple times until it was nothing but little pieces of plastic. I now understand why my brother killed himself. Unless he didn't do it. Whatever was in that game must have done it itself. I hope that I'll be alright. Although, I think I messed up running over that game.